Okay, I think we might try to start. I know we have some minor issues, couple participants are having trouble getting in, but hopefully we'll resolve it in the next couple minutes. Okay, hello everyone again. I'm very happy to see even virtually so many colleagues, so many people who are worried about the moving to the transition to online language teaching. And I know that this past couple months were quite stressful for many of us, especially for language educators, as we had to move quickly and we had to adjust all our instructions within like a week or so. So hopefully these workshops, this workshop series that is organized by the Center for Russian, East European and Eurasian Studies at the University of Pittsburgh, will give you some basic ideas. Some will serve as a guide, some kind of guidelines for you how to organize your language classes online if we move remote to teach all our classes remotely, or even if you have to start teaching in a hybrid mode. So at least you'll have some ideas, a toolbox for various language assessments and language learning activities that you can apply in your own language teaching. So I just wanted to remind you, today is the second workshop in our series, and it is the second workshop, to Zoom or not to Zoom, synchronous versus asynchronous activities in the online language classroom. We have 2 more workshops to go. The next one will be next Tuesday on June 2nd, the same time. And the last one will be on Friday, June the 5th, and also at 4:30. And we are using the same registration form, the same link. You will be able to access all other workshops with the same registration form. As what I did today, I forwarded you this confirmation email again. So please check your spam folders in case this email got into your spam, because you will need to follow the specific link generated by the Zoom. So if you missed our first session on Tuesday, I would like to use a couple of minutes to introduce our team. So as you already know, my name is Olga Klimova, and I teach in the Slavic department here at the University of Pittsburgh. I am also currently an acting director of the Russian program, and I'm the director of the summer school for high school students, the Startup program here at the University of Pittsburgh. In addition to having a PhD in Russian literature and language, I have a master's in instructional technology from Duquesne University, and I worked as an assistant of instructional as an instructional technology assistant in Hampton High School and in Hampton Middle School, and also worked on several projects as an instructional designer. And I just wanted to remind you about the main rules, what we are going to use in our meeting today. We have muted all of you. We turned off your mics, so we won't get any background noise. We also turned off your web cameras, but if you want to keep it on, it's your choice. I just wanted to remind you that this session will be recorded. So if you don't want to have your screen being recorded in this presentation, please use a minute and turn off your web camera. All the questions will be posted in our chat box, so you can start posting them anytime between now and the end of the presentation. Today I will be in charge of the chat box. I will be keeping an eye on all the questions, and I will try to answer some questions myself. However, if these are questions that are relevant to the specific slide, to the specific information that our presenter is going to talk about, I might ask her to pause and to respond to this specific question. So I'm going to now let our presenter to introduce herself, the second member of our team, Dr. Anna Dyer. Anna?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Anna Dyer. Some of you know me as Anna Kolesnikova, and I'm an instructor of Russian, a lecturer of Russian at the University of Iowa. My experience with technology comes from my PhD in second language acquisition with an emphasis on technology. And also, just because I like it so much, I use it a lot. And in the previous years, I've been instructional lead on technology in several startup grants that were professional development programs organized by our university and our Russian program. And so today I'm going to lead the webinar, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. And I want to let our third team member introduce herself, and that's Dagny Felker.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Dagny. I recently graduated from the University of Pittsburgh, and I studied linguistics in Russian and Eastern European studies. But I've been helping with this project, creating materials and assisting Olga and Anna with, putting it together. I'm also going to be kind of managing the technology and supporting the ASL interpretation today. So if anyone is having issues seeing that, or any sort of technical issues, send me a message in the chat and we'll figure it out.
All right, thank you. So let's start. So the topic of today's workshop is to Zoom or not to Zoom, because that is the question of the last several weeks or months. Yeah, and today in this webinar, I'm going to talk about synchronous and asynchronous activities that you can employ in our online language classrooms to make them efficient, engaging, and just plain successful. So let's start. So first of all, let me go over our webinar plan. So I'll start with some general discussion. And during our first webinar on Tuesday, Olga has provided with an excellent theoretical overview. So I will touch upon it just a little bit, and I mostly will be showing examples of what she was talking about. So my first examples will focus on the synchronous learning, and I will be mostly focusing on Zoom in terms of technical aspects and tools. Then at the end of this part, there will be some time for questions, and then we'll take a quick break because it seemed like it was necessary, to have a short break in a 2-hour webinar. And it's not going to be exactly on the hour, but probably in an hour 15. So I just thought it would be nice to have a break between two parts of the webinar. So the second or third, I guess, major part of the webinar is when we'll be talking about asynchronous learning activities, and we'll focus, since it's a language webinar, on various language skills. And just because language teachers sometimes also lead culture classes, not lead, we teach culture classes and deliver lectures. As a bonus, I will provide some advice on how to organize asynchronous activities for non-language classes. At the very end, after we have questions about this part, we will have interactive activities with you, our participants. Now, the idea of this whole series was to make the whole webinar very interactive and engaging you in the various online activities at all points of the webinar. But we were planning on 30, maybe 40 participants, and we ended up with almost 400 people registering. So just not to crash Zoom with all of our interactions, I have put them to the very end and actually limited them quite a bit. Still, during the webinar, we'll have various activities that will be marked on my slides with these little icons. So if you see this little bulb, it means that's where I will ask you just to think about something. You don't need to use chat. And by the way, I cannot use chat. I can, but it's just like too cumbersome to get to it when you're sharing your screen. So there you don't need to worry about typing anything in. Now, another one right here is where I will ask you to use the chat. We'll only have one activity like that. And here, Olga will be helping me in moderating the answers to this specific question. And the third one, it's going to be a poll. And at the end of the, as I said, webinar, will be covering more engaging interactive activities. So let's start. And I'm starting by giving you a task. So during this webinar, I want you to keep track of how useful it is for you. Now, if you're taking notes, just like create a little chart where one column has a check mark, and that's where you put little marks when you already knew something, what I'm going to tell you about. Then if you learned something new, that's going to be an exclamation point. And if you see something going on the screen and you like it, but I'm not addressing it in terms of how to create this effect, then put a little heart, which means you love this effect and you want to learn how to do it. And basically, I made the PowerPoint as interactive as I could for that big of the audience. And you will see some effects of interactive PowerPoints that will just be appearing as part of my narration, but not as part of me teaching you that. So if you like that, keep track of it. And that's what we're going to be looking at in our next webinar when we will learn to make interactive PowerPoints. All right, so let's start with a general discussion. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this meme that was widely circulated at the beginning of this pandemic and the switch to online teaching. And I really, really love it because I think it really shows that when we're planning our teaching, we're as elaborate as this part of the picture. And then in March, we were told to plan for possible remote teaching, like we have to switch. So we're like, first thing we try to do, we're like, all right, we'll just cut something out, but we'll keep the bulk of it. So then we actually start working on our remote teaching plans and we realize how much time it all takes. So we shorten it even more. And then it comes to the actual teaching, where once we start working with that in the classroom, it really, due to various reasons that can happen in the online environment, gets down to that. Now, as much as I love this meme, I think it actually is not very much reality-like, because I think most of us ended up somewhere here. We are teachers, which means we're like perfectionists, at least a little bit. And we really, really feel responsible about giving as much content to our students as they signed up for. So I think all of us work day and night trying to get somewhere here in this picture. So trying to get everything we still had to teach them, although we had to cut some corners. So today I'm going to try to teach you some tools, some activities to kind of land us in the more elaborate part of the picture. I wish the horse was reversed, but still. So something that will make us comfortable teaching content instead of focusing on the actual, technology part. So since we all are language teachers, we know about ACTFL standards. Now, some languages or language programs, language schools adhere to them and some don't. But even if you're using a different system, things like, or standards like communication, culture, connection, comparison, communities still come up in some way. So I will be using the ACTFL standards as our example. So these are our goals. And here are our tools. It's asynchronous and synchronous activities. Now, when I was looking for a picture, first I was looking for a handshake. I was going to put a handshake with synchronous on one side, asynchronous on another one. And then I thought, it's really not a handshake. It's really a struggle. And the struggle comes from within for us, where we have to decide every time, is that going to be a synchronous or asynchronous activity? What's going to work better? And there is also a different level of fight where in some universities or some institutions, I know there is more than just college level here, I know the K-12 is also here. So sometimes administration is also micromanaging in telling us what should we use, asynchronous and synchronous, and they have their own idea of what's better. So I thought the arm wrestling picture is a much better metaphor for that. Now, here is a little bulb icon. So here I would like you to remember what we covered in our what Olga covered in her first webinar, where she gave you excellent ideas of what parts of the standards lend themselves better to synchronous and which ones lend themselves better to asynchronous activities. And as you remember, we can come up with a synchronous or asynchronous activity for either of them, but some of them will just work better. So take a second and remember that, and if not, just access our files from the previous webinar to refresh your knowledge about that. Now, here is my take on classroom teaching versus online teaching. Now, in the classroom teaching, we have, I think, three major tasks. We prepare for teaching, we teach, and we engage students. For example, we have conversation hours. We invite them to our office hours. We have culture festivals or different events where we try to connect students together. Now, in the online environment, we have the same tasks, but the proportions are different. So we still prepare, but the preparation is now much bigger than the teaching part. And engaging part is getting bigger and bigger. But it's not that what makes teaching online much harder than teaching in the classroom. It's one more thing that we kind of take for granted in the regular classroom, but it really comes to the forefront in the online teaching, and that's moderating. And that's what totally makes the online kind of heavier for us. Because in the class, moderation is easy. We just look at the student and they're like, know exactly what we want them to do. Yeah. And just our physical presence in moderating the class is easier. Also, since we've been teaching the same kind of classes all the time, getting the homework to students, getting it back from them, grading, it's just like not really part of the, it goes into preparation part, but not in a specific kind of skill. So, and that's exactly what I think makes teaching online so much difficult. And I think you also felt kind of drained from teaching online. So here we have the blocks, I would say, that I think constitute online teaching for us. Preparation, teaching, engaging, and moderating. But there is another thing. Engaging becomes a major function of us as teachers. And again, in the classroom, engagement for us is extracurricular activity. While here, if we don't engage students at the level of preparation, if we don't prepare tasks that will be inherently engaging for them, if we are not engaging them into teaching activities when we teach, or when we're moderating somehow their communication with each other, their communication with the LMC, their communication with us, it's not going to work in the online environment. That's why it kind of takes a bigger toll on us. Now, some of you might disagree with me right now and say, well, you know, we're teachers. We're really here to teach, not to engage. And I'd say, yes, but that was my thought before. Like I always thought, you know what, I'm here to teach, you know, I'm not an entertainer. But like the recent events, you know, in this pandemic really has shown me that that's not true. And what the pandemic, I think, has shown us, like if you were following discussions, you know, online in the academic circles, you will see that us educators consider the main goal of the university, of the college or school is, and I'm talking about actually colleges and universities, is to transmit our knowledge to our students. While what it has shown us is that for our students, going to the university is first of all a socializing activity. Like it's really come to the forefront what exactly they need. A lot of them don't want to come back to colleges if they're going to be continue teaching, studying online, because for them the social part of engaging with the community is very important. Now you can say that, you know, there is a lot that universities do to engage students, and language teachers probably should not be involved with that. Now, one article that my student actually published last year, it was an opinion piece in the school newspaper, has also given me a lot of food for thought, and I think it will give you too. What she wrote about is that she basically said that language departments do as much work as any other university extracurricular club in bringing them in making them feel welcome at the university. So what she says here,
pause.
change. Okay.
All right. Good.
Thank you. So right now I will just read what the slide says. So when most people think of a community on campus, they might think of a student organization, sorority, fraternity, or maybe a cultural house. Most people would not think of a language department fostering such a strong sense of community among students. Language departments work very hard to make their students feel welcome, cared for, and part of something. Before enrolling in a language course, I never would have thought that I'd meet some of my best friends through a Russian class, and that I'd spend a lot of time in Phillips Hall, which is where we teach all of our language classes. So it's really important for us to remember that we actually have this task of bringing the community together. And a lot of students find themselves, you know that from freshmen, a lot of freshmen leave the university after their first semester or their first year because they couldn't connect with anyone. But in our language classes, we meet probably every day of the week. We have a lot of partner activities, group activities, and what we create is so much bigger than just language. And we have to really take it now and put it into the online environment any way we can to keep students basically love us. So to sum up my theoretical introduction to you. So we know what we need to do. We need to prepare and teach and engage and moderate. We have to teach them all of the standards of language learning that's important to our field. And we have our synchronous and asynchronous tool. One more meme for you that I also found very, very true. Now, when we kind of prepare our teaching, we kind of think we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed. But when we come to the actual teaching and we get feedback from a student, that's how we look. They're like, I have no idea what's just happening now. I have no idea what's happening on RLMC. What's the deadline? What is? And you're like, oh my God, what is it? But the more we know, the more practice we get with this online teaching, and the more kind of tools we know, the better I think, and the more organized we will, and the more smooth the teaching will be. So let's get into the synchronous learning. Now, it is, I will be teaching, so in the recent months, synchronous learning basically became synonymous with Zoom. And I have to tell you, it's a little bit terrifying to teach Zoom to people who have been teaching with Zoom for the last probably 2 months. So I had a little poll for you. And unfortunately it didn't come through, so don't worry about it. But so no poll for now. But basically, my question is, how many of you, and actually let's use chat for that, how many of you feel totally comfortable teaching with Zoom? And Olga, you'll have to tell me what people are responding so I don't mess up my screen.
No, not me, 85%. I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right, so hopefully whatever I'm teaching you today will be useful, even for those who are in 85%. All right, now Zoom is not the only, is not the only conference system tool that we could use for teaching. And there's WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts, Skype, AirTalk, Adobe Connect. I mean, Facebook has launched something like Zoom in the recent weeks. So it's just like everybody's catching up, and they're all kind of showing the same features, the same tools that we can use for our teaching. So I will be focusing on Zoom, but if you're using a different conference system, that's okay too. You probably will be able to do most of it. Now let's get back to chat. And my question to you now is, what can we do with Zoom? So what I would like you to do in the chat, please add your answer. Zoom allows us to do what?
Breakout rooms, polls, lectures, group.
All right. So breakout rooms, so I'd say it's partner work. Okay,
Yeah.
What else? I'm sorry. Polls?
Share screens, co-write, annotate the screen.
Okay, so sharing, co-writing, that's creating together. Mm-hmm.
Teach lectures, polls, proctor exams.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
that's I put under as stream, so we can stream anything, a lecture, an exam, a meeting, a webinar. Mm-hmm.
Peer interaction, play games.
Play games, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Share movies.
Yeah, that's all within streaming, because we cannot play games from Zoom, but we can definitely stream them. So one that I probably somebody mentioned it, I'm sure that is you can record your own files, and I'll talk about that in a second too. And one more that I had here, just dots for somebody to come up with something I couldn't come up with. All right, let's continue. So right now, we are looking at the online meetings, or like Zoom meetings, and I'm gonna look at different kind of time periods. So before we started, during, and then after. So this is the part before. So first of all, we need to decide what is our online meeting going to feature. Is it going to be lecture only? Is it going to be a whiteboard interaction, breakout rooms, polls? Are we going to include some external tools such as Google Document, Kahoot, Wheel Games, whatever? Yeah, and I will be covering them later. Then we have to have our materials ready. Before we start, we have to have everything. And I so recommend to have everything in the same file, not even in the same folder, but in the same file. Just because even switching a little bit, you're just losing the attention of your students. Now, if you have any external materials, of course, they should be opened before your meeting starts. Again, just to save time and to not lose time that we should be conversing with our students. And if you have any specific instructions, especially for new activities, type them up and have them ready within your slides. So setup, we need to know how to create Zoom meetings, decide on a setup, share with students, and think about security. I'm going to go over these features in more detail, and also on these, but a little bit later. And as you can see, the U part will be an activity where I'll make you think, so we'll come back to that. So right now we're going to focus on the setup. Now, most of you probably know how to create a meeting on Zoom, and I'm showing the screenshots from the Zoom website. Now, one thing I want to tell you is the title of your meeting is visible to students, so make it meaningful. Then, of course, if you want to schedule a meeting, you know, you can enter the date and the time, but use it for single meetings. The good thing about that is that it can be added to your calendars automatically. And then recurring meeting, check that if you use it for a regular meeting or for meeting that don't have a set time. Now you can start any meeting at any time, but this feature is specifically for those that kind of have a fluid schedule. Now, if you look at the recurring meeting, you can put it on every day, every other day, and so on. What it does, it creates a list of identical meetings on your Zoom website, which can be kind of cumbersome if you're teaching a lot of classes every day. It just makes it, for me, very hard to navigate. The good thing about it is that it can be added automatically to your Google Calendar. But I actually prefer to use this feature, the no fixed time on the recurring, for meetings that we just use whenever we need to. So only one meeting is listed on your Google website, which makes it very nice, easy to navigate. But the con is that it cannot be added to the calendars automatically just because it has no fixed time. All right, so next one is some features that you probably know that you usually would not require a password if you're teaching at the university and it's part of the institutional Zoom, but anytime outside of that, it's better to have a password. All right, so here are some more features, and I actually keep most of them unchecked. But for instance, enable joining before host, that's great for conversation hour meetings. Yeah, because their main thing is that you want them to converse, so when they join before, they can start talking if you're not there. I never mute my participants for language classes just because, again, I want my students to be able to talk at all times. Waiting room is a nice feature for something like office exams or oral exams. So you give the same link to all people, but you let them in only by one, so they don't interfere with each other or they don't hear your conversation with the previous person. Now, authenticated users is, of course, for all classes within your institutions. That should be on, and that will prevent a lot of the security kind of breaches. Then breakout room, and we'll talk about breakout rooms today a little bit later. That should be on for specific activities, but really try to avoid it because you never know exactly who will be in attendance. So sometimes when you pre-assign a breakout room and then half of the students don't show up, you still have to redo it manually, and it's just a hassle. Now, a couple more um, um, advice about the Zoom website. So usually we go straight to meetings and we kind of ignore all the other links, and yours might look differently depending on your institution. But here, recordings, like if you're recording to the cloud, that's where you should go to look for your recordings. Now, if it's part of the institution, they might also take it and place it on your LMC, but they will still be appearing here as well. Settings is super, super useful feature if you are using the same setup for all of your meetings. So just go and explore it, and you will see how much easier the setup will be once you go through the settings. Reports is another one, is another feature that allows you to generate login and access reports. Basically, you can keep attendance or like keep track of the attendance without like writing down everybody who attended your class. It also keeps chat copies, and you know, it provides a lot of other useful information. And of course, video tutorials. If you're afraid of Zoom, there's no better place than Zoom itself for a lot of the helpful information. Okay, so sharing the information with students. Now, when you copy your invitation, the really only thing you need for your classes is this little thing, just the link and the meeting ID. And then when you add your link and meeting ID to your LMC, make sure you add both. Sometimes students have easier time joining by meeting ID than by link. And actually, am I speaking too fast for the interpretation, or am I good? Good? All right, thank you. All right, so here I'm gonna talk a little bit about Zoom bombing. And now actually, I would like to launch a poll, and here it is. So have you or your colleagues ever been Zoom bombed? Yes, no, or you're not familiar with the concept? All right, wonderful. So we do have some people who have been affected by that, and most people are either not familiar or have not been affected, which is great. So here are the results of the poll. So what Zoom bombing is when somebody outside of your class joins with some malicious intent. Most of the time, it's to say something inappropriate, draw something inappropriate, show something inappropriate, or some hackers are proficient enough to lock you out of the meeting and totally acquire the control of the meeting. That happened to me. Was not the most pleasant experience, but you know, I kind of knew how to remove participants very quickly, so that worked very well. But it adds so much stress, you know, so we always need to think about it and how to prevent this situation. Now, definitely passwords or user authentication for institutional access. Do not allow default screen sharing, and I'll show you how to you know, handle that. Provide an alternative link, just like, you know, we at the previous webinar, we told you if Zoom bombing happens in this webinar, go to your email and we'll send you an alternative link to reconnect. And just like I'm telling you now, instructions, you should give the instructions to students ahead of time. Now, how to handle? I'll talk more about it when we go into the during part, and I will show you how to use the safety button, lock the meeting, or remove the participants. All right, so the next thing we're gonna go over is you. And as I said, you before the online meeting. So let's take a look. There is a challenge for you. There are 4 memes on this page that probably will give us some advice, and you cannot see them, don't worry, well, you'll see them in a second. I'll give you 30 seconds to look at these memes and figure out what advice they give us about our preparation for our online meetings. All right, I hope you're coming up with some ideas, and I hope you enjoyed some fun break. So the first thing is we have to look professional. Doesn't matter if it's a first class, fifth, or the last one. Yeah, we really have to show our students that we're still on in this professional mode. Then you have to set up your work area. Sometimes we think about our appearance, but then, you know, we don't really think about how students see us, especially if we cannot see our own feed. Clean your desktop, which means do not have any personal emails open, personal files. Sometimes they think, oh, well, I'll just use Zoom and I don't really need to. But something can happen, then all of a sudden you have to share the screen or switch the screens. And you really don't want students to be looking at your messy desktop or some personal private files. Now have your cell phone or a clock right next to you, because once you go into the screen share mode, you don't see the clock, which makes it really, really hard for you to keep track of your lesson plan, like 5 minutes for this, 5 minutes for that. So it's always better to have it right next to you. Also, there is a bonus for you, and that's a Zoom beauty button, or that's what I call it. But basically, if you go into your video icon, there is this little arrow that goes into video settings, and that opens some more options for you. And one is called touch up my appearance. And I will really, really miss this button when we go back face to face, because what it does, it kind of makes your appearance smoother, and you know, why not? So we look better on screen than we do in real life. Okay, so that was before. Now, during the meetings, what do? We need to be able to set everything up, and we'll focus on safety feature, setting up the view, locking, assigning, and recording. Now, then we need to be functioning in sharing screen, sharing audio and video, whiteboard annotations, and polls. So we'll go over all of them. And then we'll get to our review. So first we will start with the safety features. So locking screen and removing participants. So once the meeting starts, you know, and here we kind of are open. We don't know who's going to be on a webinar, but in your classes, you know exactly who should be in your class. So once you have the students who should be there, it's very good to click on the security button and decide on the features. Do you want your students to be able to share screen, to chat, or to rename themselves, or to annotate? So especially for, let's say, K-12 settings, you should not allow them to annotate, because kids can just like start writing crazy on your screens. Also for college, I'd say do not allow them to rename themselves, especially if you're teaching bigger classes like culture classes, whether you don't have a good relationship with every student, because some students might decide to be class clowns and rename themselves into something that would be an insider joke, or, you know, inappropriate, something, you know, that pushes the levels of how appropriate it is. So it's better to ask them to, you know, use their regular names. Now, not necessarily, you have the same features under participants button, where you can remove participant, or, where you can remove participant. Now, renaming options is, as I said, you can do it under security button, or you can also, under participants tab, you can see these 3 little dots. It gives you some more options of what you can or cannot do. So here again, you can allow them on mute or rename themselves. So it's up to you, but you need to know where to find these features. Now, once again, do give them a chance to give themselves their real names, because sometimes when they join with a laptop or the iPhone, the name that you'll see is not their name, but the name of the device. So don't lock this feature too early.
Hold on for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'll switch.
Okay, are we good? Okay, so once you're a host, once you're hosting a meeting, you actually can assign co-hosts. And you probably heard at the beginning, we were assigning hosts within our group. Now what you do, you go again to the participants tab, and you can decide if you want to make a host or a co-host. Now, when you select somebody as a host, it means you lose the host privileges yourself. You lose all of the control, you become just a regular participant. So it's better to assign a co-host. And another interesting thing, I don't know if you knew it or not, but if host leaves the meeting abruptly, for instance, you have internet issues, or there's a Zoom bomber that locked you out, Zoom automatically assigns the participant who joined first to become a host. So, and you need to know it, and you either let the students know what to do when that happens, and let the student who joined your meeting first to let them know that they will be co-host in this situation, or manually assign somebody else who you can give instructions to, or it's better to have somebody who you have cell phone connection with. Okay, now when we start viewing Zoom, there are some problems. So video feed follows the speaker, and for Zoom, anybody who makes noise automatically becomes speaker. So the solution in big meetings is to mute all participants except for the speaker, but it does not work for a language class. We want them to be able to say something because that's our main goal, the communication. So for instance, to avoid this problem, you can either spotlight the video of the main speaker, for instance, yourself, or if your student is presenting something, that would be them. So the video feed doesn't jump. Or participants themselves can pin the video that they want to see on the screen. For example, right now, if all you want to see is my video, just hover your mouse over it and you'll see 3 dots, and then you can use pin. So pin only works for your specific computer, while Spotlight works for everybody who is participating in this meeting. Another problem is that you sometimes cannot see all of the participants at the same time. So in the solution here is to click on the gallery view. And I know you probably are super familiar with that. That's how it looks in the upper right corner. And what it allows you to do is see everybody at once when the screen is not shared. Zoom Talk, the problem is we sometimes having to constantly mute and unmute ourselves. And some people will forget to mute themselves when they're done talking. So first of all, you have to mute yourself, and then you can hold the space button on your keyboard to temporarily unmute yourself. So basically you hold this button to talk, you let it go, and it goes back to mute automatically. Now, it's something that needs to become a habit. Otherwise, it's just really easier to be switching between the mute and unmute button. Okay, Zoom view. Another problem. Once you start sharing your screen, like me, for example, most control features disappear. The solution is that you hover your mouse over this green thing that says you are screen sharing, and then more options will pop up. Another option is to connect a different screen, but not all of us have this, this opportunity. Now, Zoom view. Again, something to think about. You'll have 30 seconds and you will see 2 different setups of Zoom and a bunch of questions. So take 30 seconds, read the questions, and see what you can come up with. This activity just to think about, no need to be typing anything in the chat.
Some of the questions you have already responded to in the last slides. So, and there are a couple which I already answered, but
okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so which view allows to see the shared presentation better? Probably you said it's number 2. Which view allows you to see other features such as participant list and the chat? And that would be, again, picture number 2. Which view allows you to access Zoom commands easier? In this case, that was picture number 1. But I think you probably like the picture number 2 better, just because videos don't block the presentation, they appear separately. You also have an easy access to chat. Now, the setup is wonderful, but it's not a default setup that Zoom opens up for you. So to get to it, you either have to click the exit full screen button that you can find under Zoom controls, or simply the escape button on your keyboard. Now, sometimes it doesn't go right away into this, into the mode that I'm showing, so you'll have to play around, but most of the time that's exactly what you will see, everything structured on your screen. But the Zoom controls kind of disappear and you'll have to kind of hover your mouse to get back to them over the green sharing thing. Okay, you're recording meetings. You know, I mean, we are recording you. You can record by using the record button, and you have 2 options: record on your local computer or record to the cloud. Now, if you don't see it, again, it can be also found under more. So Zoom really makes it easy for you to putting the same functions somewhere on the screen where you can find them, so doubling them up in different parts of the screen. Okay, what's interesting about the recording? So hopefully it will be interesting. Now you can pause it and you can stop it. Now it's very easy, but it actually gives you different functions. So when you pause a button and then you resume the recording again, the original recording file keeps going. And you, at the end, will only have one recorded file. If you're using the stop button, then you press recording the second time, it will create a new file. So you can create multiple files from the same meeting. So that could be useful, for instance, if you're administering an oral quiz and you want a separate file for each participant, video file. So you just keep hitting stop, new recording, stop, new recording, and you will have a separate video file for each of your participants. Also, did you know that you play with the settings enough, you can actually record a separate audio track for each participant, even if they're talking at the same time. So if you're hosting something like a debate and there are different people kind of talking over each other, but you still want to know as a teacher who made a bigger contribution to the debate, that's what you can do. This is not the default setting. You have to play around with the setting to get to it, again, on the Zoom website under settings. And what it will give you is when everybody's talking at the same time, Zoom records a separate track for each person, which I think is wonderful for our purposes of control. Now, recording your own files. Remember, I told you Zoom allows that. And it's very easy. You just start the meeting with yourself. You don't invite anyone, not students, not friends, not pets. Nobody, just you. And from that, you can create various type of files. You can record your web camera, you can record your presentation on the screen, you can record just an audio file. As you can see, Zoom automatically creates audio separately. So for instance, if you just need to record an audio file, just disregard the video files completely and only use this one. Now, I felt that it gave me superpowers as a teacher, because once I found myself teaching from my home, I didn't have access to a lot of the programs that I'm used to, such as Camtasia or Audacity, which I use for audio and video editing. It happened so that the borrowed laptop that I got, I could not install anything on it, and my own laptop was so old I'm afraid to touch it. So I used Zoom for every recording that I need to record for my students, lecture recordings, just audio file recordings, or just the webcam recording. So it really is a useful feature on Zoom. All right, so what's going on during our online meeting? So we set everything up before, and we looked at the signing costs and recording meetings. So now it's time to figure out how to share everything and include different features. Now, sharing the screen. We all know how to share the screen, right? Or I hope we do. We hit the big green share screen button, and it gives us all the possible options. Now, did you know that students can also share the screen? So for instance, you can use it if you want your students to have, present a presentation. Sorry, no pun intended, to deliver a presentation for you. They share their screen, and they basically, they're not co-hosts or co-hosts, but you still can allow them to use their screen to present something. Now, when you're sharing a PowerPoint, you do have a choice. If I actually go back to the last slide, so you can share screen, or here you can share the PowerPoint directly. Now, I advise you not to use this feature, because instead just use the screen share, because the PowerPoint option only allows you to show the editing mode. So you cannot go into the presenter full screen mode. So they will always see this little setup. And of course, none of the animations or whatever you have embedded will not work. Now, did you know that sharing the screen can be interactive? So here in our original way, I would have involved you with the interaction on the screen, but instead I'm just going to show you a quick video. So here, I will show you how the annotation works, and you cannot do it now, I disabled it for now, but in your classes, you and your students can use this little panel to write text and draw and use stamps and so on. So that's what will be going on the screen, and I will not be talking so I don't interfere with the interpretation. So as you can see, I was sharing a slide, and imagine other people, when I asked the question, they just were deciding where to put their own check mark. Let's say I had 20 students who were doing it, and they can do a stamp or draw or type, you know, and it's a wonderful activity that we can definitely introduce to our asynchronous learning. Now, to turn on this feature, you simply click Annotate on your screen. So once you start sharing the screen, this feature becomes available. Then when you click on More, you will also see that you can disable participant annotation. Like if you don't want them to start writing right away, just disable it and just say, I'll enable it in a second. Or you can also allow Zoom to add names on the annotation, so you always see who is contributing to this annotation experience. Now, the markings from annotations stay on the screen, and you have to use the clear button. Oops, sorry, you have to use the clear button to erase them all from the screen. Okay, sharing audio and video files. So here I have an example of my PowerPoint where I have embedded audio. So to be able to play it on Zoom, when I'm sharing the screen, this area becomes very important because it says share computer sound. So when you're sharing the screen, this needs to be clicked. Now, maybe you started sharing the screen and totally forgot that you have some audio or video file somewhere in your PowerPoint. Then just simply go to More and find the share computer sound without leaving the sharing, without stopping the currently shared file. So as I said, Zoom really makes it very user-friendly in terms of how to get the stuff. Now, when we teach in our classes, regular classes, we always have a document camera, and I love the document camera, and I think you do too, because they afford so much more in a regular class. Now, some of us are lucky to have it, me not included, but you can connect it. If you have it, you can connect it through advanced settings, and you just select your document camera and you connect it. Now, I don't have one, but did you know you can use your iPhone as a document camera? Hopefully. Some of you did, some of you didn't. So it's somewhat new information for people. But when you select what to share, it always gives you an opportunity to connect your iPad via an app or via cable, simply by plugging into your computer. So I recorded a little thing with my cell phone camera for you just to show you how it looks. So basically, I just set up my camera in this position. Not camera, my cell phone on something, and underneath I just place the textbook, so I can share it. I can share it with the students. So as you can see, it acts exactly like the camera. So you can write something and mark something and students will see it. Now, since it is your cell phone, remember that you need to turn off all personal notifications because they will pop up on the screen just like they would on the regular cell phone. And the zooming feature, I was just using the, like we regularly do with our fingers right on the phone. So that's really how it works. Okay, whiteboard. So when I was showing you annotations, that's pretty much whiteboard, except you don't have the underlying picture or slide. So here it's a totally free create. You select the whiteboard, you have all of the annotation tools. And again, you can disable participants from annotating, or you can show, you can select to see their names when they're annotating. Then you can also save it, and it will save it either in progress or at the end. So you can have multiple files saved, like, and it will show you where it saves, and it just saves it as a picture. So it's a wonderful feature, and it was always accessible to you in your files after you're done. Also, you can allow multiple whiteboards to be shared simultaneously. I've never tried it, but that's an option that you can have. Breakout rooms. Now, what I love about a regular class is that we put students in groups with partners, and they have a lot of communication going. Now, thankfully, Zoom can do it for us, and it's called breakout rooms. So you can divide them for partner activities, group activities. Teachers can join just like you going in the classroom and like, hey, what are you guys talking about in your group? Yeah. Students can invite you in their group just like they would in the classroom, like, hey, I have a question. And students can share screen and chat in breakout rooms. So important is that if you're sharing something, then once you send students to the breakout rooms, they cannot see what you've been sharing on the screen. So you can either send them something via chat and they download it, or in my case, since we're an institution-based course, I ask them to open our Canvas or icon, what we call it, and I tell them where to find the activity, and they have to share the screen as they're working on it. So how to set up a breakout room? It's very easy. You just create on the breakout room button and this message pops up. So it asks you if you want to do it automatically or manually, and I'd say use automatic assignment to save time. Remember, I told you can, like for very specific activities, you can even pre-assign them before the meeting. But once you start the meeting, it's totally fine to use the automatic one. Once you do that, the Zoom shows you how it's going to look like, but students don't see it yet. So you can actually rename or delete the group, or you can move the participants around before you even open the group. So then, again, before you open the group, there are some more advanced options. So here, the first one is to move all participants into breakout rooms automatically. And my suggestion is to keep it unchecked if you want to see who's paying attention to class. Because if they go there automatically, you don't know who's paying attention. But if they actually have to click button join the breakout room, you will see that bam, 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 everybody disappeared, and there are two that probably went to get some, fresh air or something. So once you call on them, when they come back, they're like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And that keeps them on their toes for all the future meetings. They know they cannot just leave because you will be having this breakout room join button and you can totally catch them. Now, as you can see, there are some other options that you can explore, and it just depends on your own setup. So once you start the breakout room, you can join any group, like even if you have 20 groups, you can join them. You can leave them, and go to another group. If somebody is unassigned, if somebody just joined late, then you can assign them to a group. And you can broadcast a message to all, and of course, you can close all the rooms. Okay, breakout room and recording. So it's very interesting. If you're working in the breakout room, while recording your meeting to your computer, the recording follows you into breakout rooms. So it's being recorded wherever you go. If the meeting is being cloud recorded, the breakout rooms are not recorded. So it's always the main screen of the host. So it's important to remember, if you decide not to join the breakout rooms, pause the recording. Yeah, so you don't have the big chunk of like, quiet time. Or when you're waiting for them to work in the groups and come back, do not open any personal documents while waiting if you didn't pause the recording, because that will all be recorded. An interesting thing, most Zoom crashes happen when people either join or leave the breakout rooms. So really, when you decide to use the breakout rooms, always have plan B in terms of tell students if something happens, just reconnect using the same link. But it's really something you need to test before you use it. Polls. We had a poll, so you know what it is. And it's really something that would allow you to create some multiple choice interactions that can be quickly integrated, and participants vote in real time, and the results can be saved and displayed.
Hold on for a moment.
Sorry.
All set.
All right. So the polls button is right there with all of the controls. Or you can set it up ahead of time on the Zoom website just by adding the poll. And once you hit add or create a poll, it's actually very straightforward. You add a question. So the only thing I want to point out is that single choice and multiple choice. Single choice, it means that there is only one correct answer possible. And multiple choice is something that other quiz systems call something like multiple select. Several options can be selected by the participants. Okay, so we talked about setup, we talked about functions, and now let's get to talk about us, during the online meeting. So here I kind of keep notes to myself. I have to pay attention to my head position on the screen. And right now I'm just talking to you, so it's great. I'm staying in one place. But when you're working with students, and especially when you're starting to put them into breakout rooms, that's what happens. So I really try to stay away from the computer, as this little pool noodle picture shows. Like, I really have to imagine that, like, I cannot move closer to the screen than some specific distance. All right, so be careful using virtual backgrounds, because they blend, they just create different effects on the screen, and I just find them so distracting. In the meetings where I was, where people were using it, I found myself just like looking, okay, what happens now? What happens now? Are they going to blend or not? So it's somewhat distracting. Like, I know the glaring on my glasses is distracting, but I think virtual backgrounds are even more distracting. All right. So next one is keep eye contact. And it's really something I really need to be reminding myself to look straight at the camera, but it's so difficult. But it's really how you keep eye contact with your students, because then it looks like you're looking right at them. And finally, keep a list of people. Like, if you're in a class, I just keep a list of people who are in attendance. And every time I call on somebody or somebody gives me an answer, I put a check mark. So I know not to call too much on some people or not to forget about some participants. It really makes it easy, and students appreciate, especially if I go in the same order. All right. And just to reiterate, so we control our position in front of the screen, we use virtual backgrounds wisely, we keep eye contact, and we keep a list of people. All right, and after, what do we do after? We have to save recordings if we were recording something. So let's check it out. So once you close your meeting, there is this little message pops up. Do not close your computer. Do not leave your computer. I mean, you can leave, but don't do anything to disrupt this thing going to the 100%, because that means your recording will not be saved, or it will be a corrupted file. Now, we don't really need to record every class we teach, but if you do, just make sure to stay with it until it reaches 100%. Now, your iCloud recordings will be available on Zoom website under recording, and sometimes your university, for instance, our university moves them automatically to our Canvas, to our LMC. Local recording will prompt you to save the file on your computer, and the default folder is called Zoom under your documents. So right now I have the default folder Zoom, and I created another one just for my own Zoom recordings of this year. So when you go there, you will see that every meeting's been recorded. And once you click on it, you will see your audio files, you will see your video file, and if you were using annotations and saved them, or using whiteboard and saved it, that will be saved as a screenshot. As you can see, everything is kind of the default Zoom audio screenshot, so it's always good to go there and kind of change it into something more meaningful. Now, iCloud recording allows you to do actually some minor editing. So here you can see this little icon, which allows you to shorten the recordings. For instance, if you recorded something, but the first 5 minutes was just like setting up, hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see it? Does the audio file play? And you just don't want it to be part of the recording that you will probably be sharing either with your colleagues or with your students, then just trim it a little bit, but you can only do it in iCloud, or unless you have something like, you know, Camtasia or like any movie editing software, then you can do it with files saved on your computer. Now, once we did that, yeah, then we have to reflect. And I really, since it's such a new environment for us, it's really better to, you know, to take a note and write it down, because we forget. We think we won't, but we will. So reflect on that, and finally relax and recharge. I don't know about you, but I always was like drained after my classes, and it doesn't matter if I was teaching 1 a day or 3 a day, it was exactly the same thing, just like no energy whatsoever. And you know, there are many reasons for that, and they're making a lot of studies, and it's real. Yeah, so we need to find time for ourselves. All right, and a little bonus fun beyond Zoom is, you know, Olga was showing you so many different ideas last time, and I'm kind of showing them again, but in a shortened version. So if you need more ideas, go back to her presentation, and that you can stream a lot of things with Zoom. Yeah, some of you were saying you can have online quizzes and games. We can do crossword puzzles. We can do a watch party with students. We can explore Google Earth. We can play the Wheel of Fortune. Anything that we can stream on show on our screen, we can stream. So fun with Zoom can be real if we make it happen. All right, so coming up next, a 5-minute break. But before we go into that, I'm open for questions about this part.
Okay, so we have a question about whiteboards. How do you make separate whiteboards? How do you create separate whiteboards?
So in the settings, there is a setting to allow multiple whiteboards to be shared. So it needs to be clicked for multiple ones. As I said, I've never used it in my teaching. Couldn't just come up with a use for it. So if I was sharing a whiteboard, that was only one that I was controlling. But in the settings, there is allow multiple whiteboards. You can look it up on Zoom website where to find it exactly, and that should work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like we have another question. It's about breakout rooms, whether it's a premium feature.
That I don't know. So I'm teaching at the University of Iowa, and whatever package they purchased from Zoom, it includes all of the features connected with the breakout rooms. So I'm not the person to be answering this question, but if you contact Zoom support, they will be able to tell you.
I think I originally had a regular Zoom account with this like 40 minutes free.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have breakout room function.
Oh, then it must be a premium account. Yeah. So it's always nice, you know, the university just purchased the whole package for us with all of the features, and it worked wonderfully.
Oh, actually, someone is posted and is posting that breakout rooms are in the basic version now. I use them.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Zoom has been updating constantly, so they have fixed a lot of the things that were troublesome, and they have made features available. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Why can we not play movies on Zoom?
Oh, yes, we can. We totally can. So you can, when you share your screen, remember just to click to share the sound and the movie. So here, that's the watch party. You can totally watch movies. You just start the movie on your computer. You share your screen with sound. and whoever is part of your Zoom experience will see it. Now, it can be tricky. When I was talking to ITS about that, they said it really depends a lot on the internet of your participants. So participants with very high-speed internet, like if you have high-speed internet, it will be transmitting very fast to their computers, but those who have internet that's not so fast, they will be looking at the very spotty picture. So it really, if it works for your participants, that's great. So you can do it, but it really depends on individual computers or internet.
There is a clarification from this participant, from Maria. She said that only specific movies play on Zoom, not Netflix movies. Maybe this is the copyright issues.
That's very interesting. I've never played a Netflix movie, so I'm not sure if it's not compatible with Zoom. So I'm sorry, I don't have a answer for that. But usually, whatever, I actually don't even have a Netflix subscription, so I don't know. But usually, whatever you're showing on your screen should be able. So you don't share the application, you just share your screen with sound. So whatever's going on your screen should be displaying in your participants' windows.
It looks like the audio was going through, but not the video. So it looks like maybe the settings issue.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely if the audio was going through, that something was going. And again, a lot of the technical questions I might not be able to answer. I'm just a teacher of language who just likes technology. So if you have a very specific technical question, definitely tech support at Zoom will be, or your ITS people, IT people at your university or school will be able to help you.
Okay, this is a technical question. Do the multiple separate audio video files from a single recorded session can be found in the cloud, or you have to record in your computer to access them?
No, both iCloud recordings and your local recordings record multiple files. So whatever you've been recording should be there, and you can look through them. So on your computer, as I was showing, that was you will just see this Zoom 0, Zoom 1, Zoom 2, 3, 4, and on iCloud it will be a separate part, recording 1 with all different options, recording 2 with all different options. So just the setup a little bit differently, but you will have access to everything. Again, I'm not sure, maybe whatever your Zoom access is different. I'm talking about the one that I would say most universities have purchased, the premium account.
There are a couple of questions just about the alternatives. For example, big blue button, but there might be some other people who are using it. I think it's in the Blackboard.
Yeah, so I don't know, I'm only sharing Canvas. Yeah, so as I said, I'm only sharing what I've been using. That was Zoom. Definitely, there are a lot of alternatives with some, and you can access Zoom through Canvas, although our IT people actually advised against that for whatever reason. So there's some issues with compatibility. All right, any questions, or should we start the break?
We can save a couple of the questions till the end. I can save it from this session.
We also have some time at the end for the questions. So right now, let's, as I said, we've connected a lot of dots. So let's take a 5-minute break and come back in 5 minutes. And we'll talk about asynchronous learning. Okay, sorry. All right, two hosts trying to record. Sorry. Is it being recorded now? Good. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about asynchronous learning. So if we talk about asynchronous learning, and definitely we're talking about language since I'm talking to language teachers. So the skills that we need to teach are speaking, listening, reading, writing, grammar, and vocabulary. And our platform is a learning management system. Now, we have different ones. We have Canvas, Moodle, Google Classroom, and so on. And today I'm going to be focusing on Canvas just because that's what I'm working with. If you are working in any of these other language management systems, then on our Google Drive, you will find a wonderful document created by Dagny with links to all tutorials for all of these platforms. So you can use the same link, you just have to access the today's webinar, the folder for today's webinar. And also the recording for this webinar and also the slides that I'm showing will appear there later today or tomorrow. Now, when I'm talking about the skills, some of you might take offense that I really have it that separated, because we all know that all of these skills are really interconnected, and definitely I know that too, as well as the competencies, different competencies such as cultural, socio-linguistic, discourse competence. Like, I know about the importance of all of them for the language proficiency, but today I'm really focusing on specific skills and how we work with them in our language management systems. Again, I'm going to be showing examples from Canvas, but all of the systems are very comparable to each other in terms of what we can do with them. All right, so I will add one more thing, and that's engaging. Yeah, so as I said, it's really important that we engage our students with our classes and with the materials. And the first thing to do is to provide them with clear structure. And again, in Olga's webinar, she was talking a lot about different ways to provide structure and support to students. So here is a screenshot from my own class where when we started this sudden switch to online, posted this information about the syllabus changes. I had a quiz for them if they're ready for the online class. I had a survey for them. I had some questions and all of the links. So that was there available for them. So all explanations of the course aspects are there, and it was for a regular class I usually post some like frequently asked questions and my syllabus and office hours, but for online learning we really have to be explicit about every possible aspect. Then of course we have to provide a very detailed schedule with deadlines. It's really what keeps them going. If there is no deadline connected, you're not going to be emailing every person. Like in class, you're like, hey, I don't think you handed in something. And like, oh yeah, I will. But in an online environment, really everything has to come with a deadline, even if it's not something they're physically submitting, even if it's something they're just reading. Yeah, it has to come with a deadline, because then it appears in their as soon as they open their Canvas, it appears as something to do for this class. So it's a very useful feature. So probably you didn't know, but in, or at least Canvas, there is the tab called People. And if you click on it, you actually can see all of the things about a specific student. For example, you will see here, like I had all the assignments graded in this class, so I didn't have any ungraded assignments, but a list of them will appear for a specific student if you're interested what you haven't graded yet for them. Then you can also see the interactions report. So you will see what student actually physically clicked on your language management system and how much time they spent on a specific assignment. So if they're telling you they actually went there, but then they, just couldn't submit, and they're like, I'm sorry, Canvas doesn't have any record of you even accessing this assignment. So we're kind of like behind the scenes, we know what's going on. And some analytics that you might want to look up for them. So this gives you kind of an idea of what's going on behind the screen, how involved students are. Then also for our different purposes, such as oral quizzes or exams, sometimes they're individual. So if they have to sign up for something, it's always better to keep it within your LMC. So you just create a page, and instead of making it that only teachers are able, you select that teachers and students can edit it. And you can also add it to the to-do list. So you can add a deadline to it. So it appears again in their list of things to do. And usually it just works as like a Google document that anybody can share. And I'm sorry, anybody can edit. It appears within your LMC. And if there is something going on, like somebody is just taking somebody out from the slot and writing their own name in it, you as a teacher and students actually see all of the page history, so you can track down unwanted behaviors like that, but I don't think that can happen. Then it's very important, as part of the netiquette that Olga was speaking about, to keep them kind of informed about what's going on. And as we started this online module, I realized that students, just like us teachers, are bombarded with an enormous amount of emails every day. So it's very easy for your email to get lost. So for my groups, I put every email that I ever sent to them as a page into their Canvas website. So as you can see, I put, so even if they missed it, they can easily go there and find it. And I included all of the attachments as well. So it made it easier for them to access everything. Then you have to relate to them and to show their care. For instance, and again, that was example from Olga, I had a video greeting for my classes. I also had a survey where I asked them how stressed they are about switching to this online mode, you know, and after spring break, where are they going to be? Are they going to come back to Iowa City, and that's the city where our university is located, or they're going to be somewhere else? And since it's not an anonymous survey, I kind of reached out to all students who marked that they're stressed about studying online to kind of talk them through it and explain some more. And so I had about like 7 or 8 questions in the survey that gave me an idea of what kind of situations my students are facing. Now, I decided to share with you the video that I created with my students. So basically, I just wanted to show them, to relate to them, and kind of make them feel less scared about the online teaching. So I'm going to share it with you too.
Hello everyone, it's Anna and I'm here online with you. Well, it's actually a video, but you're watching it online. Now, I'm not sure why I'm recording this video for you, but I think my main goal is to show you that I'm kind of uncomfortable on camera, to be honest, very. But it's our new format and we have to get used to it. So here I am. Now I'm gonna explain to you how our course is gonna be set up, and before I go into that, a couple of kind of general things. The most important thing that I want to convey to you is that our class is totally back on next week. We had a very long spring break, and I know it's a challenging time for all of us, but I think it would be good to... Oh my god, I think my kid got hurt. Pause. All right, I'm back. Never mind me bouncing. I'm actually on the bouncy ball. My daughter is fine, but as you can see, things like that can happen. Probably they will happen during our online classes too. So anyways, where was I? So the changes are actually that a lot can happen during the online experience. Now, you can come to class looking any way you want. You can wear makeup, or you can come without makeup. You can shave, or you can totally forget to shave. Or, here it comes. And you can come to class wearing your pajamas and enjoying your morning coffee or tea. Yes, totally. You can wear your pajamas, you can even eat, as long as we don't hear it. You know, and for the online environment, the main thing for me is that we all get together and we're ready to learn again.
So as you can see, you know, it's somewhat fun, and actually a lot of students emailed me or texted me saying, oh my God, thank you so much. I was so scared, and actually this video made a difference, you know. And that's a simple thing, you know, that took me probably, I don't know, half an hour to create. And as you can see, my kids started fighting right in the middle of it, and I decided not to edit it out because that's exactly what can be happening in a real online class. So that was something that they did appreciate. Then after the first week, I actually sent another survey, and it wasn't anonymous again, where I was asking them about the workload workload that I gave them? Was it more? Was it just right? Was it less? Most of them actually said it was just right, but I did reach out to people who said it was more than they preferred and see what's going on. And most of the time, they were overwhelmed by their other classes, and the Russian homework was coming like on top of that. So we were dealing it on the individual basis. Some of them were dealing with more extreme situations, and then again I was looking at it on a like individual basis. And so again I offered about probably 9-10 questions that gave me an idea of what I was doing right and wrong in the first week. All right, let's talk about different skills. So speaking, my favorite skill, because it's fun and students love it. They're super scared of it, but they love it. So, and one of the activities that I really like to involve is to talk about movies. So my second year, for instance, watches a movie every 2 weeks, and they watch it with the Russian subtitle, I'm sorry, with the English subtitles. So even though their language is not on par with the original movie, they can still understand it, but we discuss it in Russian using a very cool app, and that's called Flipgrid. And Flipgrid can be embedded directly into Icon. Yeah, so while students can access it, of course, as an app on their cell phones, if they don't want to, they can just go into the Flipgrid directly through Icon. Again, our university is subscribed to Flipgrid. If yours is, you can do the same thing. Then on Flipgrid, you can see students posting their original posts, video posts, where they record what they thought about the movie. And you can also see people comment on the videos. And I don't know if you can see the numbers, but students do watch each other videos and they listen to each other. And then some of them decide to comment. And actually I require one post and one comment, so they kind of have to do it. Then the speaking, just can be a recording, a recorded response to a question. And it can be a free response, like here I'm asking what's their favorite season, or it can be a very structured response. While here I'm asking them what they did yesterday, but they have to use verbs of motion. And if you are in the field of teaching Russian, you know how scary the verbs of motions are. But when they do it one day after another, and they just have to, talk about first what they're doing today in terms of verbs of motions, what they did yesterday, day by day, they become more comfortable with it. Now, the recordings are submitted via Canvas. It's very nice. And then we use the speed grader option to grade online. It actually is very easy. It just records within Icon. You don't need to be uploading, downloading their recordings. You just flip through them and you grade them right there. It's a very nice feature. Another speaking activities are the speaking through video. Now, I have to say some students love it, some students hate it, but they all have to do it. I put it in the syllabus. And sometimes I call it a fun task, sometimes I call it a creative task, some have a little bit more structure, some less, but students actually, as they start doing them, they love them. So that can be a monologue about something. It can be an interview with a Russian partner, and I connect my students to Russian so that they can have these dialogues. They can teach us something. Most of them decide to teach us how to cook. So there are a lot of recipes in my media gallery. Or as this one, they're teaching some riddles in Russian, which is wonderful. They can show us their world. And again, most of them just show their apartment, which is also fine. And some, if they work in an interesting place, they take their cameras into their workplace and show us where they work. And of course, everything has to be in Russian or in the language that they study. They can do a role play. And if they do a role play, some of them can use the role plays that we have been doing in class, or they can come up with a totally new one. And some of them even go into fiction. I have several fantastic projects that are totally made up by students, and they're just so interesting to watch. And once they get into it, they actually really like it. So I highly recommend it. And again, it's all embedded into your Icon so they can see the gallery, and it's a wonderful, nice feature. Makes them talk. All right, let's go to grammar. And grammar is probably the easiest one to teach asynchronously. So when we're talking about flipped classrooms where you teach the theory at home and in class you only focus on communication. It's very nice. It's a very nice feature that you can, let's say, embed a tutorial, whether you created it or whether you're just embedding it from YouTube, and then you can ask them to answer theory questions so they know the rule, or at least they read the rule and try to figure the rule out before they come to class, whether it's in real classroom or online. Then, of course, we can just simply be asking them multiple choice questions about our language. And again, all the examples here are in Russian. Yeah, since that time teach, they can just select an answer, they can type in an answer, or there is a whole wide variety of question types that they can choose, fill in the blanks, multiple drop downs, matching, and the more you use it, the more, the easier it gets. Now, I want to draw your attention to this one. It's called file upload question. And what it does, especially for non-Roman scripts, so if you have a question that students need to type the answer to, but they cannot just because they don't know how to type in, they don't have, they don't know how to type in Russian or any other non-Roman script, they can write it on the page, take a picture, and download it directly into their quiz or whatever you're using as a quiz format. So that's a wonderful, wonderful feature that allows them to still practice their writing as they're responding to your questions online. All right, let's go into listening. And again, listening is pretty simple and it lends itself well to asynchronous activities. So I employ a lot of dictations. You write what you hear. I know not every school of thought supports using dictations, but for Russian, it's important that they have this like automatic understanding of what they're listening to, or the regular listening comprehension. Listen to the file and respond to questions about its content. Let's go to reading. Reading, again, it's very simple. You post the text to read and you add some comprehension questions. Now, only thing I'm going to tell you, text should be in the picture format to prevent students to copy paste it into a translation engine. So for, I didn't have a scanner, but here is my iPhone again. So I was just taking a picture of the text. I was minor editing it on the computer and placing it as a picture. And students were asking me about it. They're like, we cannot like highlight it. I'm like, nope, you can't. That's the whole point. You have to read it and understand it. And if you need to look up something, you can just look up a couple of words. Don't just copy paste it. They get used to it. They're not happy about it, but they get used to it. Then just make them read aloud. And it's just something I use in my classes even before the online. I make them read aloud every week for 20 minutes. They select whatever they want to read. They have to let me know in advance what it is so I can kind of track the progress. And they can submit. So I'm asking them into one file, submit 4 separate recordings, 5 minutes each, so the total of 20 minutes. And if you are going to be using a similar thing, you need to know that you can submit multiple files within the same assignment, but the teacher will see them all. Like if they submit 20 versions, you will see all 20, but the students will only see the last one, so the most recent one. So you need to let them know that even though they only see one, you will see all of the submissions that they make for a specific submission. And again, it goes for every submission, not necessarily reading. It can be pictures or whatever. So for whatever reason, Canvas only shows students that they have a most recent submission.
Hold on
Okay.
for a sec.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should be good.
All right. Okay. So, and another activity is that that I employ for reading is that students have to read the text while listening to the text. So, and I know it's in some systems and some theories, it's called a cognitive overload, but I like that the students can connect how the word sounds to how it looks. Now, you can ask me, how do we make sure they actually do that? Like, how do they actually like, why not just read and like be ready for the class like that? Yeah, not listen, skip the listening. So I don't give them this choice. Yeah, what I do is I create my own reading of the file. And in this case, it came with a textbook that does not have the audio files to go with it. But if you have it already like ready for you, you still can do it. And I can shortly talk about it if somebody is interested. But I recorded my own audio file of reading of the text. And at different points at random in the video, I added a random number or date that has no connection to the text, but it appears in the quiz that's connected to it. So basically that was something like that. When Maria woke up this morning, she decided that the weather is nice and she wants to go for a walk. So she called her best friend, Katie. Correct answer for first question is 90. Katie responded, and so on. Yeah, so basically, first of all, numbers are a very tricky thing. So I include numbers, phone numbers, and dates that are apparent random, and they're part of the quiz. That's what they're graded on. But for that, they have to read and listen to this at the same time. And it really develops their listening comprehension and aids them in reading properly when they practice their own reading. Okay, I hope it makes sense how I did that. All right, vocabulary. Vocabulary is very easy if you're using Quizlet. Quizlet is a wonderful, wonderful engine. If you're not familiar with it, definitely check it out because you can do so much and you can embed it directly into your icon. So the screenshot here is not from Quizlet, it's from my Canvas. And I'm sorry I keep calling it icon because that's what University of Iowa calls it, but it is Canvas. So Canvas lets you embed the Quizlet in any form. So I'm embedding it as flashcards, and you can decide on the format. You can embed them as a game for students to play. And of course, they can access it on their cell phones, but you know, a lot of them can play games right within, like you keep everything within the same Canvas course website. Writing. Now, writing can use different formats. So texting is very easy on the smartphones because you can easily switch between keyboards. So sometimes I give my students a task and they have to complete it by texting each other in a real messenger in Russian, because it's a breeze to be switching the keyboards from English into Russian. Then they have to post their screenshots on tools like Padlet, not necessarily Padlet, but things that allow you to post something as a gallery. You know, it can be VoiceThread, it can be something else. And basically all students can see, and I can open it in class and we can go through different things and kind of talk about it, what they were posting or what the responses were and so on. They actually like it a lot, especially I use that in my first year class. And when they realize they can type in Russian on their cell phones, they're so excited. Okay, or they can write just on a regular piece of paper, and then they can take a picture again with their smartphones. Usually all students have them. And then they just simply upload it to your Canvas. Now, once they upload the document, you can see here a lot of different things that we can do. We can draw on the screen our markings. We can add their grades, and we can add like textual comments or like corrections right there. So it's all being saved automatically and the student gets your feedback right there. So it's very easy, and I really like that Canvas allows for all of these features. So here, as you can see, the person submitted 2 files, but they again only see the very last one they submitted, but I see them all. All right, so that was a very kind of fast introduction to what you can do for language. And as I said, at the end of the, we're still good on time. At the end, I'm going to talk about some lectures, like a bonus, because usually language teachers also teach culture classes. Now, the default format of asynchronous activities for lectures is, of course, the recorded lectures. But my advice is definitely to keep them segmented into mini videos of 5 minutes or less. And remember how I told you when you're recording something on Zoom, you can stop and then start a new recording within the same session. It creates these little files that you can then easily use with students. So then I connect each little video with specific comprehension questions. And they can either use multiple choice, or like in an example here, they can actually type their answer. Also, probably if you're using Canvas a lot, there is a tool called Kaltura, and you can add your quiz questions directly into the video. So the students are watching your video lecture, and then bam, something pops up and they have to respond to check whether they're paying attention. So it's a very useful tool. I did not use it because it does is more work than to just like be adding videos and questions directly into like the quiz setting, but it's definitely something I want to explore for future years. Now, what I found most efficient, like if I go to the previous example again, so you can see I recorded a video and then I asked them, so at some point in the lecture, I say blah, 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 and what exactly did I say that? Yeah, so basically to make sure that they actually read it instead of just flipped through the frames and saw what I have on my PowerPoint. So, but it was a lot of work. I had to rewatch the video, come up with this kind of, you know, hook that I'm gonna catch them with, and that was just taking up too much time. So what I found the most efficient is to create a video of my screen recording of my PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint will have blanks, and all students have to do is to fill out the blanks in the free response area. So that meant that once I recorded it, the task basically came with it. So they had to listen to the whole video to figure out what I was saying when my PowerPoint was showing these yellow highlight blanks highlighted in yellow. So that format I was asking students, that actually worked the best for them because that kept them engaged with my video recorded PowerPoint at all times. Then discussions. Discussions are wonderful to engage students, but they can be a nightmare to grade for a teacher when you have to scroll down through the whole grade discussion to figure out who responded, who actually commented. So I was asking them to make a main post in response to my questions, and then post at least one comment on their classmate posts. So what it does, it actually on the speed grader, and again, I'm talking about Canvas, it shows you exactly what they posted. You just go through each person, you know, and you can see whether they did both, or maybe they only did one. And if you want to read them, it's right there. So you don't have to kind of scroll through them. Then on Canvas, there's also the option when you're setting up the discussion to prevent students from making from seeing other responses until they make their own posts. So that prevents them from, let's say, reading through a response and kind of figuring out, oh, I'll just say the same thing. They don't see it until they make their own. So it does engage them with the material first. Also, as you can see here, Canvas allows you to assign late fee for late submission. So right here, the grade is 2 out of 2. But that was submitted late, so it automatically tracks it down and applies the percentage. So it's, as I said, it makes grading at all breeze. All right, that actually brings me to the end of my part of my webinar today. So first of all, I want to remind you, it's not total end, but almost the end. So I want to remind you that the next webinar in the series is going to be on Tuesday. And what we're going to be learning is how to create the interactive PowerPoints, and not only PowerPoints, how to create interactive activities with things that are outside of Zoom, outside of Canvas, and how to create the activities on Canvas that I was showing today. Now, we have time for questions, and then at the end, hopefully it will all work. We'll have some interactive activities that I promised you. So if there are any questions, I'd like to take them now.
Anna, we have a couple questions left from the previous
okay.
part. So I don't know
right.
if you'll be able to answer them. So question was, do you prefer annotation tools or sharing Google Slides for written student participation?
I prefer annotation. I just don't like to be living, like whatever tool I use, I like to stay in it. You know, just because like I just don't like when I teach to switch between the screens, but it's the matter of what you are more comfortable with. So definitely when you're sharing the screen and you can switch the screens quickly, that's not a problem whether you're using a Google sharing Google document or the annotation tool. As I said, I don't use Google Docs just because if I want them to be working on some document together, then I just open this page on Canvas that can be edited both by teachers and students. So again, it keeps them within the same language media system, so they don't have to like scroll down for the link, they don't have to register for Google to be able to access Google documents. So I just prefer to keep it all in the same place.
Mm-hmm. So question about Flipgrid and recorded audio. How do you deal with the strain of listening to so much audio to grade it? It seems like it would take much longer than grading written work.
Actually, I do enjoy grading Flipgrid. I listen to them all. And it's just my personal preference. But let's say the reading aloud, so they each submit 20 minutes, and I have 17 people in class, so it's an enormous amount of grading. So in the explanation of the like I explain every assignment they have, like I explain how I grade it, and I say I will listen to 1 minute, but at random. So if that matches what they should be doing, so I know what they should be reading, I know exactly where they should be in the reading within this 20 minutes, just because they progress through a specific kind of reading portion. If I don't hear any extraneous conversations, if I hear that they're actually trying to read, then they get full credit. So the main idea for me, I'm not really giving feedback on, let's say, if they pronounce something correctly or not. The main thing for me is that they just automatize the reading. That's it. So they know, and most of them actually, so a couple of times it was that they submitted the same things that they submitted previously, thinking I won't notice it. But I did notice it, and basically I called them on it. I just said that was enough for me to listen to 30 seconds, and I know that it's been, a previous recording. So, so the main idea is not for us to grade it. The main idea is for them to actually read for 20 minutes. And I don't mind giving them full credit if they did it, even if they were reading slowly, or if I couldn't get to actually every like possible thing to fix in the reading.
Mm-hmm. So there was also a question about how do you use things like lyrics training interactively on Zoom, like in synchronous mediums?
I'm sorry, what?
How would you use things like lyrics training interactively on Zoom? When you have the song with lyrics, showing up. So
something like, so in Russian, we have the 3years.com website that does a perfect job of, aligning it. And actually, if I have to use something, I use something pre-made. So I don't really, I'm not really sure how to answer your question. So if I use something, I use it where the lyrics are already embedded into the video.
Mm-hmm. It seems like several participants expressed their concern and also asked a question about students not sharing their web camera during the synchronous classes or oral assessments.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage,
So, so in my case, like in the video that I was showing you, it actually was an 8-minute video where I went through different settings of the Canvas. And one of the things I was talking about the cameras. I said if they don't feel comfortable sharing their videos or webcams during classes, I said, feel free to turn them off. But I said, I really want for us to have the same experience that we did in class, where we could see each other, where we could look into each other's eyes. I made it a little bit, like as a pledge to them to have their cameras turned on. And I can say most students have them turned on, both during breakout rooms and during our classroom interactions. And again, when I was asking them in the survey after the first week, how did they feel about it? Most actually said it was so great to see people's faces. It felt like I was in a real class. And I did tell them about that. I said, there are so many of you who did have this feeling. And when I said it out loud, like I really did not have a problem with them not sharing the webcam, but I made a point of explaining how important it is to me that they do share it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are a couple technical questions, but you might be able to answer them next week. So okay. One of them was how is the timer added to the PowerPoint? So you were showing the PowerPoint. So is it something you're going to address next?
Okay, actually, right now I'm gonna go back to this. So let's start our in interactive stuff. So remember how I told you to keep track of things that you already knew or learned something, or the heart, you kind of saw something that I was showing you, like, I want to know how to do it. So timer thing is one of those things. Yes, I will be teaching you everything in the next webinar about all of the interactive features. So right now, you will actually have to access a different website, and we'll add interactivity. If you have a cell phone, smartphone, please open your browser and type in menti.com. And a number of, so something, you will see something like that on your cell phone. So here you will need to enter the code, and the code will appear soon. Now, if you don't have a smartphone, you cannot access it, don't worry, it's just a demonstration for people who can just see how it looks. So it's really adds, like polling in class really adds a lot of fun for students. So let me start it. So at this point, this is the code to type in 340841 at menti.com. And then I would like you to tell me how useful was webinar to you. Yeah, and you can only select one. You knew a lot, so probably wasn't very useful. Maybe you learned a lot. Maybe there's still so much that you want to learn. And if you're looking at our screen right now, you can see people starting to respond. Interactivity works. Fantastic. Oh my God, it's really nice to see that people learned a lot and you found a lot of the things that you still want to learn. Wonderful. So again, things like that I will be showing in the next webinar as how can you add like interactivity like that to your classes. All right, I'm very, very glad how much you guys learned. So I don't know if you see it, but like on my screen, the little dots are just running to different areas, which is really, really entertaining. I don't know if you have like a delay in the animation, but it's really fun. Yeah, and again, I will be showing that tomorrow. So thank you. I will stop it. Okay, so I can see people learned a lot. It's really wonderful to hear. Yeah, so that was our little interactive activity. Another one will be within Zoom. And we have a couple minutes left, so I will let you guys annotate the screen. So I just turned on the annotate button. You will see a world map, and I will ask you to mark your home country because we have people from different language department. Probably you're coming from different countries. Not yet, not yet. So once you see your viewing annotator screen, then you have view options, and then you have this annotate button. Oops, sorry. I thought I added like this annotate button. So you can click it on. And now I would like to ask you to use your annotation tools to mark your home country. Oh, wonderful. Okay, you can use a stamp, you can use, and something like that, you definitely can, you know, oh my God, love it. Look at that, guys. We have people from all over the world.
I'm going to switch interpreters right now.
Okay.
All set.
All right, everyone, thank you very much. I'm actually gonna save it. And right now, I'm gonna clear everything. And so let me once again, oh, not everything got cleared. So once again, let me remind you that our next workshop is happening on Tuesday, and we will learn a lot of the things about interactive PowerPoints and asynchronous activities on Canvas, and also things like this polling and, you know, wheels and all the other stuff that will add to your interactive classes. All right, thank you very much. And thank you for giving me the Friday night. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone. And I would like to thank our ESL interpreters, Sarah and Amber. Thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. And also I wanted to thank the Less Commonly Taught Language Center at the University of Pittsburgh for helping us to organize the ESL interpretation today. Anna and Dagny, thanks again for your wonderful work today. And everyone, will see you next Tuesday at the same time for Anna's presentation on how to make your presentations interactive using PowerPoint and other web-based tools.
Thank you.
Please fill out the survey when you can. We also send you a link in an email with our recording and the resources and the link to the resources on Google Drive. Thank you so much, everyone. I know we had a couple comments from our colleague Lashanda that K-12 uses Google Classroom more than university. So that's why they have to think about integrating Google Classroom more in their language classes rather than any other systems. Thank you. Oh. Thanks a lot.